30.
Okay, so the next meeting is the 1st of July, and sorry, I lost myself. And the theme is beginners, and I thought perhaps we could sort of have a look at the resources available for people who are starting to write a thesis or a paper in tech. I think that sort of flows on, and I'd be interested in sort of reviewing and trying to understand stuff about Git and what might be done to make things better. Does that strike a chord? Assuming you're interested in coming next week.
I'd like would like to toss in a remark also about theses. Even though we've had people using Tech and LaTeX for, at my site, 29 years in parts of campus, until 2 or 3 years ago, the final product that had to be delivered to the thesis office was double-spaced, printed on bond paper with very strict margins and line spacing and so on. And that final product was the only thing that was recorded. And it was then sent off to the library, who then digitized it, turned it into PDFs for archival storage. But a couple of years ago, we changed from having a bond paper printed version being the final one to a PDF being the final one. So far, they have not talked at all about the issues of accessibility, nor have they talked about how they're going to store and access theses far into the future. I don't think they've thought seriously through the technology problems of recovering data. And it's a problem all librarians face. If you, quote, digitize text, what does that really mean? A bitmap scan isn't a whole lot of use because it's not searchable. What you really want is the original text stream that you want to be able to find things in. And so I think, again, this is one more reason why every university and college is going to be different. And it's very hard to find any kind of commonality. But for publishers who have long-term needs and for individual authors who want to keep their life's works accessible, a tech-based solution, I think, could be quite reasonable.
Your thesis office is following a tradition of sorts. British Acts of Parliaments, at least until recently, are printed on vellum for archival purposes. So vellum is a sort of paper made out of animal skins. It's the high quality archival stuff of the past. Sorry, that's not shutting up.
But it's now stopped, so it's not done anymore. The Acts of Parliament on vellum.
I read the Wikipedia article and I couldn't get a clear statement. There was a move to stop it and some opposition to stopping it, but I couldn't figure out from the Wikipedia article what happened in the end.
I would guess it's now an aluminum foil and stored in some deep mine or somewhere.
Well, for what it's worth, there was terrible fire of the Houses of Parliaments in around 1820, I think it was. You know, sort of wrecked the building, and it's caused because they were storing these things called tally sticks that were used by the Exchequer. They're wooden sticks that were used to record money or transactions. However, digital media certainly has its problems too.
But now how to, I mean, there's lots to the idea of using Git there. How to, I mean, somehow the Tech Life group needs some involvement how to do this. Because I think you cannot, I mean, I was actually a bit wondering that we are only a small group. And I thought because the topic is so interesting that many more people from the Tech Life core team would be there, but actually they weren't, and I don't know why. But to way forward, one needs to convince somebody to hack something together or try what options are there.
There's other people interested in this. So the R community, the R programming language, use Markdown a great deal, and they use a cut down version of Tech Live called Tiny Tech by somebody called Zaihe, if I've got the name right, and or Zihe, and it's 100 megabytes, and it's fine for the standard purposes, and it's a sort of integrated into the R distribution, the R Studio. So you install R and you get a tech distribution that is adequate for the particular purpose. And was kind enough to come to one of our earlier tech hours. So it's on YouTube somewhere. I can make it easier to find later. And he's on his GitHub pages. He's on his GitHub project. He's doing work to sort of produce more flexible subsets and that sort of thing. Also, Christian Schenk, who does MikTech, he seems to be a one man who does everything, and he's doing very, very well, I think, in many ways. I think he might be interested in this. I rather like the idea of using the pack file as a way of storing the various trees you have, because most of the archiving tools from zip through to tar are focused on the file system. You've got a file system and you want to archive a file system. Whereas with the Git pack file and the whole Git thing, what you have is you have a collection of trees, some of which just consist of a leaf, and you want to archive all of these trees, taking into account their commonalities. And that's much, much closer to the sort of evolution of versions from one year to the next, even if it's not from one day to the next. So getting all the macros that you could possibly need into a single Git repository could, I think, be very useful. Because then if somebody's got a problem, they could say, here are the hashes of all the macros I've used, together with the paths used to access them. Tell me what my problem is. And they don't have to send the macros over because you've got them. Or you probably got them. If you haven't, then there's something's gone wrong. Strange macros in your tree. I don't know how to when the time is ready, then the Tech Live people will come around to it. And if they don't, then we can manage without them. But I think at the moment, the issue is, does this have capabilities in the long term? And does it have capabilities in the short term? And different people will give different answers. I think that I suggest that myself, Nelson, and Harmut all agree to some extent that it's worthy of investigation, even though everybody's extremely busy and got a lot of other things to do and has a real life as well.
Yeah. One thing we mustn't forget, however, it isn't just the tech engines for which we need this, because there are almost 500 executable programs in the binary tree for a single platform. And then we have potentially 100 or so platforms, although it's probably 6 to 10 that are on an annual DVD. And in some sense, what we're looking for here is a sort of a replacement for the input-output library on every operating system that would look at a path name presented to it, and if it looked like a local path name, would just get it locally, as it always is done. And if it looked like some sort of a global path name, for example, a DOI, digital object identifier, or a URL, then it would simply go out on the web and download a copy and store that locally, and then return the handle so you could read bytes from the file. And probably there are already research projects doing this, but I suspect nobody has really thought seriously of trying to make this totally platform independent.